But then there's also the critique of optics, right? And if Trump actually does what he says he's going to do on Truth Social, and there's not a lot of truth that comes out in Truth Social, but he's claiming that but there's a lot of humor. He's claiming that he's going to go to East Palestine, Ohio soon. So if Trump beats Biden there, I don't like that, especially when you pair it with Buttigieg's kind of cold inaction, consultant speak when really confronted with this. So there's no contest on which party would be more beneficial to, environmental protections, but the political optics of this are not good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Pete said he'll get there when the time is right, whatever that means. And, Trump, people will make the correct point that his administration rolled back the Obama-era safety regulations on high hazard cargo trains. That rule wouldn't have applied to this one because it wasn't marked high hazard. This is just a general corporate lack of investment problem.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's also just I feel like a bit semantics to a degree. Like we're talking about general.
That's one rule that he got rid of for the exact same reason that Biden crushed the strike.
Yes.
It's all because of these rail oligarchs control both these parties.
They do. And I think that this is a missed opportunity for the Biden administration to illustrate the differences, though. I mean, they're both bought and paid for, but one is better. And right now, there's a vacuum being left politically. But here's Tucker Carlson kind of giving his spin on that.
A couple of weeks ago, and the Biden administration responded to it and the mushroom cloud that resulted when officials set fire to the wreckage by saying that, calm down, these kind of environmental disasters happen all the time. The Transportation Secretary, Mayor Pete, told us, we have 1,000 train derailments a year. Don't worry. That's not exactly reassuring, but at least since Biden became president, it does appear to be true. These things are happening a lot. It's not your imagination.
Whoa.
Just today, there was a mass casualty event in Bedford, Ohio, after a metal manufacturing plant exploded. That's about an hour away from East Palestine. Multiple victims were reported burned. What was that about? We don't know. Meanwhile, in Doral, Florida, residents have been told to shelter in place for more than a week after a, quote, renewable energy plant caught fire back on February 12th. According to the EPA, air quality reached unhealthy levels after the fire began. Local parks and schools have closed. Residents are still being told to close their windows and run their air conditioners. That's still the guidance from local officials tonight after emergency workers tore down what's left of the renewable energy plant. Residents in Osceola County, Florida, meanwhile, near Orlando, have been receiving similar guidance after a massive fire at a plant there burned thousands of plastic pots and pallets last week. Now, the Biden administration hasn't said anything about any of these. What is this? At some point, people are going to ask, is this industrial sabotage or some kind of war going on?
Okay. So this is where, again, I mean, he begins with some sort of pressure point that he can put his, there's a wound and he's just sticking his thumb in there, right? And for political value, it makes sense, right? As I've said, I think there is valid criticism about how the Biden administration is leaving so much dead air on this very topic, and Buttigieg has been a disaster. But he goes down a conspiratorial lane because when you actually dive into what regulations mean, there's one party that's in favor of at least some regulations, and the other is uniformly in favor of dismantling the administrative state and regulation efforts. And so it has to be like, what's going on here? I mean, he began with 2 examples in Ohio. Okay, now we're bouncing around the country, and it's just like, I'm just asking questions. It's a conspiracy angle.
And the idea that he says something there that this is why he's gets paid the big bucks to be a fascist propagandist, because the way he says, at least under the Biden administration, these things happen all the time. At least under the Biden administration, you look at the actual data, and these things happen all the time pre-Biden as well.
Yes,
right, that is an insane thing to say that all of a sudden, because of the election, trains started
Derailing.
derailing. Which, by the way, if that was true, I would look at like the right wing, the people who like stormed the Capitol. But anyway, that's not the case. Actually, this is a fairly common thing. The East Palestine one was dramatic, had amazing video, and like a poison cloud right after a movie about a poison cloud came out. Like the conditions are right, and there's like I mean that's that is such a lie.
It's such a lie, and he has to make it about something nefarious and asking questions about, government conspiracy, because his audience is not interested in government red tape that would prevent these kinds of safety concerns.
Isn't abolishing the EPA like an article of faith of these guys?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but the premise of like his analysis and what he's trying to speak to, you can't touch that, because that's really the answer here. But let's keep going down this rabbit hole.
Hasn't said anything about any of these. What is this? At some point, people are going to ask, is this industrial sabotage or some kind of war going on? This is the administration that blew up the most important natural gas pipeline in the world.
There we go.
Linking East and Western Europe. The Biden people did that. Is this related to that in some way? We don't know, by the way, but why wouldn't you ask that at a certain point? But they don't care. Biden's
okay, I'm just like think about this logically. Why would the claims made by Seymour Hersh, why would that be in any way actually connected here to the United States and domestic sabotage? That was within the confines of the United States supporting Ukraine against their Russia invading them, right? And this is what he's trying to make a connection to, but there's no logical one to make.
Unless Hirsch has a new piece coming out saying Biden intentionally derailed the train, which I like. Ridiculous to think that again.
Tim Pool saying Antifa did.
Yeah, exactly. Until he did the.
But this is the only thing that these guys have, right? Because they can't touch regulation, they can't touch red tape, they can't touch more oversight on capitalists, on industry. It's all some big conspiracy to distract you from the real stuff. Here we go.
Ukraine tonight telling Zelensky, whatever you want, we will give you, while thousands of American citizens in several cities are being exposed to chemicals that could over time kill them. So you have to ask the question, where did that $1 trillion in infrastructure money go? We'd really like to know.
We do know. We do know. It's currently being put into projects. We just had Kowalski write in yesterday saying that he's seeing some of that money actually get invested into certain infrastructure. That bill passed last year. It's been less than the calendar year. So those projects are happening now. Didn't go anywhere scary. Tucker Carlson, that's your answer.
Well, I mean, what that is that's how they switch this into an austerity thing, to say that actually that spending, which was way too meager, way less than it should have been, and had to be done under the cover of an infrastructure reduction thing. That should have been way larger.
Inflation
reduction. Yeah. But like both him and JD Vance, they have to like kind of set the table of, oh no, they wasted taxpayer money to do that, to like boondoggles and like, how they used to do Solyndra and all these things under Obama. So like that's the good old fashioned GOP politics there underneath the use of conspiracies.
Yeah. And of course, as I've been reiterating, nothing more character nothing that speaks more to the character of the conservative movement than also a complete aversion to talking about regulation and the oversight of capitalists and industry that would have prevented this.
Yeah, this is very libertarian friendly view of the world. Like it was the government that did this. The poor train companies, like they're being used as pawns in a game they don't understand.
Poor Norfolk Southern.